Hey, welcome back into the Weight Karate. Glad to have you with us. Today we're going to continue our blocking practice, our blocking techniques, and our angles. So we're going to look at blocking and angles this week. We did that on Tuesday. We're going to do it again tonight, only we're going to do it with our other blocks. So we're going to move a little bit faster between the different blocks because we got 3 of them to cover, and all 3 blocks with different responses. So we're going to move a little bit faster through that. The other thing I'd like to do in order to give us time to do that is I'd like to encourage you to warm up on your own. Okay, so if you need to stop right now and go warm up, or wait till we pray and bow in and go warm up, I'm going to have you warm up on your own today, get stretched out on your own. If you need to go back and catch one of the other videos, please do that so that you're stretched out and then you come to this lesson. In fact, I'm going to encourage you from now on to warm up as much as you can on your own and come to the lesson prepared.
Jumping jacks are a great way to get your blood flowing. Anything where you use your whole body, even if it's just marching really wide steps, use your whole body to get that blood flowing before you do quick dynamic stretches.
Okay, and then don't forget at the end of class to do your static stretching. We might do a little bit of that at the end of the day if we have time. All right? All right, let's get started. Father in heaven, today we continue to lift up Sensei Tom and all of those folks who are going through the struggle with COVID-19. God, we pray that you will protect them, that you will give them life, that you will restore them to health, that you'll keep the rest of us healthy as we continue to walk through these steps together, keep our minds focused, keep our attitudes in check as we live together and we work in closer spaces with those that we actually do love, and we treat them like we do, Lord. Help us to be the most loving and kind that we can. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Sensei. Feet together, hands at your side. Ready? Bow. All right, if you need to pause right now and warm up, pause right now and warm up. All right, once we're warmed up, we're going to work through all 3 of our other blocks. Now, we've done these together before. There are videos of these out there if you need to go back and review. But we're going to add the strike. We're going to add the response to these blocking techniques, and we're going to add angles. Usually when we do these 3 blocks, we do them from a horse stance, and we practice that head block so we can get that arm coming straight up. Okay? Then we practice our chest block, crossing the body, coming out to the shoulder. Crossing the body, coming out to the shoulder. Then we practice our leg block, coming down above the leg. Coming down, low blocks, crossing the body, coming down. Cross the body, come down. Okay? That's what we practice. Today we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to do it with our angles. So we're going to do it from our fighting position. We're going to use angle 1 and angle 3, and then we're going to add responses. Okay? So again, the 3 responses we practiced on Tuesday, the reverse punch, the chop, and the ridge hand. We're going to do those from different angles and see which ones might work the best depending on where you're at as far as close and far and what's going to work the best. So,
Now remember, your angle 1, our angle 1 is to our left, and our angle 3 is to our right. For you, if you're watching us, this is your angle 1. This is your angle 3.
in fact, Sensei, why don't we do that? Why don't you turn around this way as we're going through these and practicing so that you guys can follow Sensei Dale in the direction he's going, which is going to be opposite of me because of the angle when I'm facing you versus when you're facing me. So, here we go. Fighting stance, right leg back. Okay, so your left hand's out in front. We're going to start with a head block. We're going to step at angle 1. We're going to slide to angle 1. Okay, and we're going to head block. Okay, ready? Itch. Knee. San. Switch. Itch. Knee. San. Okay, so we're going to practice those. Okay, notice when my head block goes up, I'm bringing in my hikate. Okay, now I don't always have to do that, but in this case we're going to start there. All right, now switch your feet. Now we're going to do a chest block. Now chest block is inside out. So if I'm stepping to angle 1, my imagination is that strike is either coming straight down the center and I'm moving it out, or it's coming at a roundhouse and I'm stepping into the force of that strike. So I'm moving inside the body here. Okay? I'm moving inside his force when I'm doing this block. This is moving me inside. Parry block moves me outside. Chest block moves me inside. Now, we typically do our chest block with a fist. Okay? That's how we practice these, the Japanese style. You can do them open hand. Doesn't matter. If it's inside out, we call it a chest block. Outside in, we call it a parry block.
Other side.
Okay? So here, parry block, oh, chest block here. Okay, move. Let's go this angle. Boom. Okay, I'm coming inside out. And I want to step into that as much as I can. And the reason is, if you'll notice, this is where he's striking. This is where he's most powerful, is right here on the end of the strike. So I want to get inside of that strike. So even if he hits me back here, he's glancing off. And I'm putting myself in position to do what I need to do to his body. Okay?
Two things you can notice there. One is if we're at this distance, a sparring distance, or even just a boxing distance, when he goes to make that block, his arm is extended. Watch his block here. Don't step, Sensei. Watch his block. Look how extended it is. And he is breaking my force. My power is coming here, and he's stopping my power. But notice how when we moved in, he did the same block, but when we moved in and he stepped, his arm shifted angle a little bit, and it caught. This is no longer, we teach a 45-degree chest block, but as he moved in closer, his arm changed angles just a little bit. It's still the same block, but he's protecting more of his body.
Yeah, this becomes a protection of my head as well. It's the same motion, but because I'm stepping in, that's going to come back as I step, okay? And that's not going to be hard for you to do, okay? That's going to be a natural motion, okay, when you have resistance.
All of our techniques, we practice them in one range of motion, but we can move them up, we can move them down, we can bend them. We just want to do what will work in the protection, but we're training our muscles to get in that position, whether we're protecting our head a little bit more or going out a little bit further, or even every block is a
strike. Good. All right, so chest blocks. Here we go. We're going to step to angle 1 to your left. All right, so here we go. Ich, knee, sun. All right, switch your feet. Ich, knee, sun. Good. All right, so now leg block, same thing. We're going to step in, leg block. Okay, ready? Ich, knee, sun, switch, ich, knee, sun. Good. So that's going low. Now, when we're doing those leg blocks, I want you to imagine, okay, this is a low block. Okay? It's a low block coming across my body, going low. All right? So, and again, that can be, this one can be inside or outside. Okay? If he's bringing this in, I want to step into that block, again, reducing his power. The further in I can get on this one, the better, because if he's coming in, best thing is to strike as I block. Okay? So, we want to move in on that. That foot's coming in. Every time you actually block a kick, make sure you have fists. Do not block a kick with an open hand. That's how I got a crooked pinky. Okay, I blocked the kick with an open hand. Another one of my stories. All right, Sensei loves my stories because he's heard them 1,000 times. All right, so we want to make sure that as we step in, we're blocking that kick. Now, remember, all of this stuff can happen in close too. So, now we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to do it with slow step or small steps. So just a slide. We're not moving in a big motion to that angle. We're just going to slide a little bit off center. Here's our center. We're going to slide off center. Okay. In fact, what we're going to do is, even though I'm stepping to angle 1, I'm going to turn back to angle 3. Okay. So it's just a shift in my angle from 7 to 3, but I'm going to do it with a little slide to 1. Okay. So ready? Ich. Knee, sun. Okay, switch your feet. Ich, knee, sun. Do it with our chest block. Ready? Ich, knee, sun. Other side. Ich, knee, sun. With our leg block, switch your feet. Ready?
Can you show us before we go how this little step or the little turn of the waist is actually happening?
This stuff happens in here. Okay? I'm in here. We're in close. And I turn here.
Oh, there's the head block.
Head block, coming up. Okay? Right? Chest block, here. I'm opening this up. Okay? Notice. Watch this. Get strong. Get strong. We're in here.
I will
We're
not
in
be
here tight.
moved.
We're in here tight. All I do is chest block. Look what happened to him. I've spread him out. Everything else I need is there. All I did was chest block. Turn and chest block. And because I didn't hit kata, and I could have, this could throw him off even more, or I can grab this here. Okay, so we're in here.
Can you explain the hikate real
Okay,
quick?
hikate is this. Every time I do this, I'm practicing grabbing and pulling him in. What happens is, once I'm in here, if I pull him in, now I have full control. Even if this gets off, I mean, look. Okay? Now, so that chest block throws that off. Now, watch the same thing with a leg block. Okay? I'm in here. Leg block. Okay? See what happens? And I've got hikate. What that means, I've got control. Look at this other hand. Here, let's turn you this angle here. Look at this other hand. See how much strength he has there? Go to strike. Okay? All I did, we're in close, leg block. Okay? And again, all this is now available for me to strike or respond to. And look how balanced he is. He's so imbalanced. Right? Thank you, Sensei. He's a good actor. All right, so that balance, okay, although it doesn't take much for me to throw him off, because once his head is out here, it doesn't take much. Boom. It's a shift of the hips. You're going to take somebody to the ground, or you're at least going to throw them off balance enough that they're going to have to take a huge step. They're not going to have any control. Now, remember, in our katas, we do a lot of these strikes. This is where this comes in, is we're in here, and I do this, let's say I do this leg block strike. Okay? See where that strike's actually happening? Boom. Okay? I'm not hitting him necessarily in the belly. I pulled his head down, and I'm striking through his head.
Yeah, we always practice our katas. We say we're taking that step and striking our belly button of our imaginary evil twin who's also invisible. But the reality is, when he did that hikate, grab my arm, and he pulls me down, my head becomes belly button height.
Okay? So, again, this stuff is designed to hurt people, and we don't want to do that if we don't have to, but that's your first response. Now, let's do these with a chop. Okay? So, we're going to step, head block, chop. Okay? So we're going to step up, head block, chop. Okay? Ready? Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Other way. Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Okay? Again, if it's in close, I do that head block. I'm actually probably grabbing. I'm making a quick strike to the jugular or whatever I need in here to get positioned to do some throwing and bending and all that fun stuff, breaking stuff. All right, so chest blocks, chest block, strike. Okay, ready? Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. She, hit. That was the next one. Ready? Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Leg block, chop. Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Other side. Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Good. Those of you doing Hangetsu right now, you can do a ridge hand as well. So on that leg block, okay? We do that in Hangetsu. Boom, right? There's a lot happening. Okay, this motion here. Okay, and then we pull that down here. Okay, so let's do that ridge hand, that underneath reverse chop ridge hand look. Let's do that with our head block first. So we're going to head block, ridge hand over top, actually, rather than underneath. Ready? Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Other side. Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. With our chest block. Switch your feet. Ready? Itch, hit. Knee, hit. Sun, hit. Other side. Itch, hit. knee, hip, son, hip. Good. Leg block. Hitch, hip, knee, hip, son, hip. Other side, hitch, hip, knee, hip, son, hip. Okay, so this is spreading of my hands. All right. Again, if I'm doing that on an opponent, he's striking, okay, and I'm coming here. I'm leg block, ridge hand. If I don't strike here, I'm striking with my forearm, my elbow. But notice what that does for the next motion if I follow through on that. Okay, I can spin him all the way around with that one motion. Boom. And if I want to, bring him to the ground. Okay? So, each of our blocks sets us up for something else. For the most part, what it does is it gives us time to respond. So, Sensei decides to strike. He strikes here. Now I get to decide what's next. I get to choose. I have all these options. Now, he's got another strike there. I got to keep it in mind if I move inside. Okay? But it allows me to move in. If I'm doing two things at once, okay, then I'm able to do more than he's expecting here. Okay? Headlock. Okay, that opens that up really well, and it drops you underneath. So one of the things we haven't talked about with our angles, okay, is we looked at them on Tuesday. We looked at our angles, and we talked about how these angles of attack, okay, that's as if this is laying flat on the ground, and these are the directions we're going. But these angles don't have to be flat. They also work this way. So, step on back. Remember, when I step at this angle 1, I can also strike at angle 1, which is now at this angle on Sensei's body. So when I do this head block, instead of just going straight ahead, I'm actually going to drive in underneath at an angle to really drive in to that kidney, okay, and liver and all the other stuff. All right, so I'm really driving in at an angle. I'm dropping that hip, let that drive in. If you're on a Fuku Kata knee and you're doing that kata, we do this double strike. That's why we drive that bottom one. Boom. It's an angled strike, but the angle is vertical instead of horizontal. Okay? The angles matter. Everything moves in circles. And we talk about them like straight angles, but everything's working in circles. And the more circles you have in your responses, the more options you're going to get. And every circle you choose gives you more time to make your next decision. It gives you more freedom to move your opponent, to go with their flow of what they're doing and what's going on. So we want to create time. We want to create distance. We want to create space between their strikes and our responses. And the best way to do that is to use circles. And the more circles we get, every block is a circle. Every strike has circles in it. Even our feet are turning. Everything's moving. The more circles we have, the more time we get. Okay? All right. So want you to spend some time. We only did 3 on each side. Practicing your blocks with your strike. So practice head blocks, reverse punch, head block, chop, head block, ridge hand. Practice at least 10 to 20 on each side. Okay? Then do the same thing with chest block on each 3, leg block on each 3. Take time and do that, and then don't forget to do your kata. Work on your kata. That's really where you need to spend some time tonight, is get to your kata and do your kata.
One more thing about the combination head blocks and strikes. What we're practicing as we're learning, we're trying to teach our left arm and our right hand what to do, our left arm and our right arm. So as we do the block and then the strike, we're doing them 1, 2. But one of their goals is that both hands would move at the same time. And we're just training our hands to move at the same time. We always want to have them active, especially if we have to defend ourselves. We never want a hand not doing something. In sparring, it's a little different. In sparring, we got this distance. We got all sorts of things not working. So when I'm throwing this punch, I'm throwing this kick, my other appendages, my other weapons are not being used. But when I get in close and have to defend myself, I want both hands moving. I want my knees moving. I want my elbows moving. I want them all doing something at the same time. So if I'm swinging an elbow, I want this one grabbing to pull him in. If I'm swinging a punch, I want this one grabbing to pull him off balance. I want my hands doing something at the same time. And that's why we're going to practice 1, 2, but eventually we want to get to 2. Or for the head block, reverse punch, we want to get that head block, reverse punch, like Sensei showed a minute ago, at the same time.
So if you are a green belt, purple belt, brown belt, or black belt going through these videos, practice getting to both moves at the same time. If you're blue belt, orange belt, yellow belt, or white belt, we want you to keep working to get each motion correct. If you go slow and get your motions correct, they'll come, the speed will come. By the time you get to the end of your blue belt, your hands are going to move a lot more naturally, so that by the time you're a brown belt, that motion is not that hard to do because your body knows how to do both well. Okay? So, first 4 belts, we want you to focus on the individual techniques. Except Craig, Hamilton, your family, you can start to make the bridge. And then green belt, purple belt, and brown belt, we want you guys to go ahead and work on doing both at the same time. Start practicing doing both at the same time so you're doing more than one thing at a time as you work through these. Okay? Now, real quick, we haven't gone through all our Aikijitsu techniques. Have we done all our Aikijitsu techniques on video?
I don't remember ever doing any.
I don't know that we've done, I know we've done 1, and I think we've done 2. So we're going to work on, and we did 3 because we did the behind the head. So we're going to do a couple other Aikijitsu techniques today before we move because we got just a minute here. So we're going to take a minute and work through these. These are more advanced, so if you're a white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, let me go through your techniques just real quick so you know what you're working on. White belts, you're practicing grabbing the thumb, turning, leg block.
Make sure your
All
feet
you need to work
move.
on.
Make sure your feet move as your hand goes.
That 90 degrees. If you are yellow belts, Stu, it doesn't matter what side you've got. If you're yellow belts, thumbs are up, thumb on top of the wrist, inside, on the outside, my thumb's on top of the elbow, and I'm going to step into the belly. Okay? Practice that technique. If you want to go all the way around and down, you can. Don't rip anybody's shoulder out, but to practice this on your own, stick one hand up on your shoulder and your other hand out and step to the outside hand in. That's how you're going to practice it at home. Practice on the other side. Okay? We actually, in one of our katas, we do this. Okay? Now, so this is closer, tighter in. Boom. Technique 5. Okay? Now, if you're an orange belt, you also want to add in getting behind somebody and pulling that head back. So the way you do that, just practice coming up and down. This is your good Qigong breathing. Okay? That motion, circle back, bring it down. Okay? So that's what I want you to do if you're in those belts. Now, blue belts, we're looking for a pinky. So we're going to do this from a grab. We're going to let, you know, I'll go general. Okay. So he's got a hold of me, even in the middle. It doesn't matter where he gets all of me. I want to grab his hand, okay, wherever I have to get my fingers on his pinky. If he's got his other hand up here, okay, then I want to go with this hand because I get my fingers on his pinky. That's the goal, okay? So I'm going to turn that hand up. My fingers are on his pinky. I'm going to make my sword and I'm going to cut across his heart, okay? Now, the way I'm going to practice this without an opponent is going to be difficult because I got to imagine this. I want this straight down the line of his arm. I don't want to turn too far. Okay, I want straight down the line of his arm. I'm going to come up his arm. I want this pushing against those in a way it's not supposed to. Okay, that's the goal. So the way you're going to practice this on your own is you're going to think pinky, turn. Okay? Just practice this roll of your hand. Okay? And then we're going to go here. This is where our technique gets applied. Turn, apply. Okay? All right. Then the next technique, so we'll do the next technique, is technique 9. We've been setting up technique 9 for the last two classes with our inside blocks, with our ridge hand. If I do my parry block, my technique 9 happens from the outside. I'm going to come up instead of ridge hand. I'm going to come up under the chin. Notice where his angles are, and I'm going to turn him off his angles and drop him to the ground. Okay? If I do the chest block ridge hand, this is going to come inside here. Same thing. I'm lifting him up. Okay? I'm pushing back at his angle where he has no support, and I'm going to drop it. So again, this one, to practice, I'm going up and over. Okay? Up and over. Now remember, the angle of his feet depends the angle of my technique. If I step in and his back foot is right there, I don't want to push him back on his foot. I want to push him off from his foot. Boom. If I step in and his feet are here and I'm here and his feet are the same as mine, then I can come back this way, because that allows me to step in and to take him down wherever his feet aren't. He's only got two things holding him up, so I want him where his feet aren't working.
So here's my feet.
Okay? His feet are here.
Closed stance.
I'm in here and I get this. Now he's back past his feet. Okay? All I have to do is drop him at that point. Once I get him past his feet.
And if I have an open stance, he's got a closed stance.
So I'm in here. He takes this reverse punch. I'm in here. Now I've got to go that way. Okay, so I'm probably going to turn at that angle to take him to the ground. Okay? I want to go where his feet are, so I've got to be conscious of his feet. Okay? And then last, the brown belt technique. We're going to do that one just a little bit different. This one's very hard. This one is probably best against weapons, though. This is probably the best technique against weapons. Sensei really wants to go grab a weapon. And the reason it's best against weapons is that the hands are open a little bit because of the weapon. They're not going to be as fist tight, or the weapon itself lends itself to some openness to give you some freedom to move. Okay, so the blade or the length of the gun gives you some ability to move. So he's got his weapon. So with this one, what I want to make sure I do is I want to start with the block. Okay. And what I want to do, he's coming, I want to step into that block because he's going to pull back to strike again. And I want that because I want to go that way. So when he comes in, I'm going to step through when he pulls back. I'm going to get on the top of his hand. Okay, my hand is grabbing the top of his hand. Okay, then as he comes around, I'm going to drive that knife into his body, or I'm just going to pull this top of his hand back towards me as I push that over top. Okay? And the further up into his armpit I get, this is called our armpit technique. The further into his armpit I get, the more it's going to hurt him. Okay? And if I get him enough defined where he's tapping, I can just pull that right out. There's no grip left. And I can take that weapon away from him.
By the way, for those of you at home, a tap means I'm in pain. It's the same signal as if I go, ha!
Okay? So if you're doing this with somebody and they tap, please stop.
Or if they say, ah!
Yeah. Anytime, any signal that says they're hurting, we stop. We don't want to keep going, except in real life, in which case I don't care how much you're tapping, we're taking you down. All right, so that's your technique. That's your brown belt technique. You want to practice getting that hand deep up into that armpit. Okay? Man, that hurt. Just doing it to myself.
Thanks.
All right. So, practice your Aikijitsu techniques as well. If you're practicing that one on your own at home, you're just going to step through and around. And imagine you're on top of the hand. If you want to take something like a knife or a stick, something that you can hold on to, you want your hand on top, twisting that through.
If you're if you're a white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, or blue belt, you don't get to use a knife unless you have a wooden fake knife like Sensei just had.
Yeah. And don't work on the advanced techniques. You need to learn the technique you need to learn. You haven't perfected it yet. I know, because I haven't perfected them yet. Work on your technique that's right for your belt. All right? Thank you for your time today. Let's do a little bit of stretching before we do our devotion and we go. All right? So, some static stretching. Remember, you want to start with your head and move your way down. Okay? So start by pulling that head over. Just a gentle tug. Don't need to go too hard. Other side. And pull forward. Okay? That's something you need to do. You can do your arms across. On both sides. Again, you may need longer than what we're doing here. These are just demonstrations. You can also put those behind and stretch. And if you can have someone lift for you, get a good stretch on those. Okay? You're going to do your waist. Slow turns and hold. Slow turns and hold. If you can get a wall or something that you can pull against, that's always great. And then legs, you're going to spread them out. You're going to stretch down. Sure, stretch each side, right side, left side. Really stretch down the middle. Good. Now, again, you can do some on the ground as well. Just get a good stretch. Make sure when you are done working out, you stretch out well. All right? Now, remember what I was saying about blocks. One of the things about blocks that we want to make sure we're doing is it gives us a split second. When we use that block first, okay, it gives us just that split second to let our body move to respond to our opponent. As soon as we make contact with our opponent, we begin to feel what's happening with them. We get to feel resistance, or we get to feel whether they keep coming. Remember, our goal is still we seek peace, okay? Way warriors seek peace because we want to be what Christ wants us to be. But we are learning to fight. And so the way we know when to stop is when our opponent stops. Okay? When my opponent's energy is stopped and he's no longer coming at me, I'm able to stop. Okay? And so what blocking does is it gives me time to begin to feel what's coming at me. It gives me the time to respond differently because in that block I begin to feel the other person, okay? Now, last Tuesday, Sensei Dale talked to you about how the resurrection changes our perspective on the issues we face in our life. The other thing the resurrection does is it changes my response to issues in my life. The resurrection of Jesus Christ changes my response because it allows me to surrender myself for the sake of others. Okay? It allows me to take on a vulnerable position to actually become more influential to bring about peace. Blocking does the same thing. Usually with a block, I'm opening something up, but in that quick motion where I follow the block with a response, that response is a practiced response that I'm going to have, that my body's going to have learned to do, and it's going to see, over time, I'm going to learn to see where I can respond to my opponent and bring about peace as quickly as possible. Well, because of the resurrection, I can now respond differently to those who attack me than I did before. One of the biggest things is I can forgive those who don't deserve it because of the resurrection of Jesus. Because Jesus died on a cross for my sins, but then rose again to prove he was the Lord of all, I can now forgive others the way he's forgiven me because I know in my heart, I can trust in my heart that God always judges justly. You know, one of the difficulties that the disciples had on Saturday between Jesus' death and his resurrection was everything seemed unfair. The world seemed like God had no desire to bring justice to the world because the one righteous person, truly perfect person who'd ever lived, had paid the penalty of sin, and yet he had never sinned. But here's the reality. He paid the penalty on our behalf, but he was still judged justly. And God judged him justly and gave him life again. But because he was willing to pay the penalty for our sin and still gain and face death, we're now able to gain resurrection because of it. And that means that whatever somebody does to me, I can choose to respond differently to that because I now know that what's going on with them is something that's broken in them, not necessarily something broken in me. When people hurt me, when people attack me, I know it's something going on in them. And so rather than attack back, my first response is going to be to shift my perspective through that block. And then after I shift my perspective, I'm going to be able to respond differently than I would have prior to the resurrection of Jesus. But because Jesus is alive and I know I'll live forever, I can now respond differently to those who come against me and to situations and circumstances. I can see them differently and I can respond differently. That's what we want to remind you of this week. See things differently and respond differently because Jesus is alive. And that truth and that hope gives us a way to respond to each other in a different way, especially by offering forgiveness to those who are around us, who hurt us or who cause us pain. All right? Let's do our creed, then we'll go. I come to you with only karate, my empty hands. I am a law-abiding citizen. I seek peace. I have respect for others and myself. I take responsibility for all my words and actions. I show caring to everyone. I am honest, always. This is my creed, karate. Amen?
I know what happened.
It started.
It looks like it's stuck.
Nope, it caught it all. Is this thing working?